My dear fellow listeners and viewers, good evening once again, and welcome to another edition of the Dr. Narine Dat Show. For those of you who've tuned into us in the past will know exactly what to do here. And for those of you who are probably watching us for the very first time, keep in mind that the whole idea of the Dr. Narine Show is to create a safe space for positive energy and mutual respect. This evening is very special, special in the sense that we have with us here a very special guest, Dr. Jon. Jon, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great. The sun is shining and it feels good.
Absolutely. Beautiful sky. Really, really beautiful. So, on that note, do know we appreciate you taking the time off your busy schedule to join us, despite the fact that you could have been outside doing so many different things. So, what we'll do, we'll get right into it. Take it away, kind of introduce yourself. Let folks know a little bit about you, and then we will dive into some stuff about you, particularly as it relates to community development and community engagement and all of that. So take it away, introduce yourself to folks so that they know a little bit, of you in terms of what you do professionally and all of these basics things.
Sure. Thank you for the invitation, Ryan. And so to start, for the last number of years, I've been working at Martin Luther University College. It's tied to Laurier and as an adjunct professor. The area that I like to focus on is community development. So I've worked with many students. One of the courses I teach is the ethics of community engagement, and one that I'm actually doing this summer is called a spirit and community. So it's bringing together spirituality and community development. I've taught this for the last number of years, and on average, we have about 30 students for every class. So we're talking about close to 100 students going through that particular course, where they're not only learning community development practices, they're actually connected with local nonprofits and service providers. So the class is both theory and practice. And
Mhm.
what I love about that is they get to see the realities of what's happening in the region, participate in making it better, and it's wonderful to see lives change through that process. So that's one thing I do. The other is I've done consultancy work. So I run a consultancy, and I also partner with other consultancies. So I've done some work for the region, so with public health, as well as economic development, facilitating conversations within the community. And in the past, I have worked in the nonprofit area. So there was a period where I was a manager of community development at United Way. So when I go to events, I bump into people that I've worked with and also funded. And it's wonderful to see where that funding has gone and how many of these services have grown and adapted to the new realities that we find in our region.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Very much appreciated. So let's get right into it in terms of your love and passion for community work, community development, and all of that. So, in your point of view, what does a strong community mean to you?
Well, I think there's three components to it. What makes up a strong community? Typically, we have this, I like to call it a 2D model, where we look simply to government and social services. So the government provides funding and infrastructure, and then we have the social services at play. And when we talk about community issues, we simply look at things in a 2D model, saying, well, we need a better government or we need stronger social services, which I agree we do. But there is, and to borrow some language from housing, we do have this missing middle where I think communities have capacity to do for themselves, and we overlook the gifts and capacity of local residents. So when, for example, if we talk about isolation and within our communities. Yes, the government could prevent funding, and we could look to social services to have the programming, but it takes those neighbor to neighbor connections, people actually reaching out to one another in
Mhm.
welcome to create belonging within those communities. So, like in uh, the area that I've worked in. So if we take like Ward 5, it's a really big community. It's growing. And
Mhm.
many of the things that we look at, so if we look at the numbers, I think it's growing up to like 30, we're sitting at around 39,000 people, right? So what can we say from that? I see that as a wonderful opportunity, a great reservoir of gifts, experiences, talents, things that we can learn from the residents if we bring them into association and connection with one another. So I'm really big, and we're getting back to this idea of strong communities. I
Mhm.
really think that this idea of simply others doing for you, so you provide the services, you do this, you do that, rather than I like to look at this idea of co-production. So it's not just what can I do for you, is what can we build together? And I think those three aspects, if you want to call it a 3D model, government, social services, nonprofit, and the community, how do we begin to work in association and connection with each other to build the type of community that we would actually like to see that is more resilient? And I saw this during the pandemic where governments were trying to figure out what to do. Uh, the nonprofits were struggling, but neighbors found ways to connect and to support each other, which in those moments was beautiful to see, even in those tragic moments during the pandemic. People found ways to connect, found ways to check on their neighbors, and were able to do things that the government and social services weren't able to do. And I think it's those neighbor to neighbor connections that are supported by our infrastructure, supported by local government, that is very important.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Very much appreciated. For those of you who have just tuned in, just to remind you that you're watching and listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show, keep in mind that there are a few different ways to listen to us. You can listen to us in a regular dial. That's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers Digital Cable as well, for those of you who have the Rogers Digital box. And of course, we're also live stream or interview here. So by all means, take the opportunity to share a page. So, John, I mean, why is it community important in today's society more than ever?
Well, what we're seeing more and more, there is this idea of the social isolation component. Um, I don't think we've really truly recovered from the pandemic. Yes, it seems like sometimes far away, but I
Mhm.
think we focus so much on economic development that we haven't really looked to this idea of the social development
Mhm.
and the idea of social infrastructure. So what do we do? What do we put in place for people to connect in meaningful ways? Um, so when I think through all this and how we actually look to build community, I think there has been some wonderful initiatives even across our city. Things like Neighbors Day, host your own
Mhm.
event, block parties. Um, those provide ways for people to interact on their street. So one of the things I like to ask people is like, how many neighbors do you actually know on your street by name? Well, someone
Mhm.
might recognize the car or things like that. So that's one level. Then the next level, do you know
Yeah.
their last name? Well, that's something
Mhm.
else. Do you know what they do for a living? Do you know what they
Mhm.
care for? Have you ever had them over your house or have you been to their house? Right? And I think that's where things begin to break down. We don't have that level of connection with one another. And that connection actually leads to other beneficial effects. So the more people you know on a street, the safer your street becomes. The more time you spend outside of your home, the safer your community is, right? And we talk about road safety and community safety, and we're hearing about break-ins and this, that, and the other. Um, I think those are also symptoms of isolation, where we're not looking around and actually seeing what impact we're having on each other. You know?
Mhm. Good point. Good point. Thank you so much for that. So obviously, I understand the importance of community work, and I think it's nice that we're having this conversation here. How does a strong community improve people's life, like people's quality of life, rather? Because you
Well,
brought up some very interesting pieces just now. Um, some people might not know the name of the neighbor, or if they do, they might not know anything beyond that. So the question is, um, how does a strong community improve, people's quality of life?
if you look at it, um, so our health is determined, 80% of our health is actually determined by who we know, what and how we're connected, and what the time we spend within our communities. But that 20% of our health can be outsourced to medical systems and the healthcare system, right? So um, our neighborhoods are very important to our health. How many
Mhm,
is our neighborhood walkable? Can we walk and connect and be physically active in our neighborhood? Are there places where we can encounter others and build friendships, right? So um, I look to, for example, with great pleasure, something that you run, the Caribbean Dreams concert, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
that is tapping into the community and the gifts of the community and bringing them together. I met people when I attended that I wouldn't have met in any other place. So it begins to expand my networks and friendships and interacting with others
mhm.
gives a flavor to life that couldn't be there if I remained in my own close circles. So these community events and community initiatives actually call us out of ourselves to connect with others in ways that are very important. And I think when we see, and this is when I talk about the gifts within our community, when we see local leaders rising up and wanting to do things and take initiatives, we should actually work on clearing a path for those things to happen. Access to space. Like, why should someone that wants to do something good for the community have to raise money and spend all this or that? Well, there should be space available for those things to happen, for people to gather, right? And there should be the full support of our leaders in relation to that. Um, when I look at it, and I'm connecting with some other thinkers around this, the idea of play is important.
Mhm,
Places to recreate, to be together within our community where people can feel safe. Like when I was growing up, our park was nearby. You grab a basketball. I met so many people there, right?
mhm,
And that type of connection is very important on a neighborhood level. And what we see in our communities, and this has impacted my home as well. As we get older, our parents are age, our parents pass, and we are put in situations, and I know your culture is probably similar to mine. We take our parents in with us,
mhm.
right? We begin to, and we're seeing more of this like intergenerational reality moving into our communities. And some people are like, well, what do we do with this? And we need more programs and we need this or that. Yes, we do. But I also see that as an influx of wisdom, an influx of a potential for mentorship between senior and youth, right? Years ago, I did an initiative where we invited seniors to tell their stories about the
Mhm,
community, and we recorded them. And as they're recording, we invited local high schools to listen, and they were hearing this oral history of their own community and interacting with the seniors in their place. So intergenerational connection is very important in the building and sustaining of our communities as well, because that's a growing reality in our homes, um, especially in the place we live, especially when there is an increased diversity in cultures that actually value that aspect and wanting to take in, and even parents wanting to have their married children move into a basement or whatever, right? When I
Mhm.
first got married, I lived with my parents along with my wife. You make a little bit of money and then you kind of launch on your own, right? So
Mhm.
there's those different levels of support. And that's what I'm talking about, the community and supporting one another and families and those connections. There are those ways of strengthening those and removing a bit of the red tape for those things to happen in order to build a more resilient community in the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
So just hang in there tight. Let me just quickly say hello to a few people. I want to say hello to Geeta. Thank you so much for taking a sneak peek. Very much appreciated. Um, Ken Ramprasad, thank you so much. I hope you and the family are doing well. Bobby, I want to say hello to you as well. I want to give a special hello to Krishna, um, and Vanessa. Vanessa actually is the individual who owns the Vanessa Cuisine, and she lives here in Kitchener. And Vanessa will be joining us, John, on the 19th of this month, where we are going to attend. All of us will be attending that awards event coming up. And for those of you who I'm not able to see right now, do know that we appreciate all of you. Please take the opportunity to share a page. We're joined by Dr. John, who's very much involved and very much passionate about community work and so forth. And that's one of the reasons we have him here, so we can talk about community and the importance of it. So, John, all the questions I asked you, obviously, it was related to understand community, right? And obviously, we have limited amount of time, but do know I appreciate you kind of capture, some of your views as to, what a community is, so forth, so that people can understand it, kind of thing, based on your perspective. So, I'm gonna kind of move on a little bit. I'm gonna ask you questions as it relates to community engagement, right? In your view of things or your experience, how can residents become more involved in their community? Because sometimes people want to give back or they want to somehow contribute, but they don't necessarily know how. Because keep in mind, as you would know, here in the region of Waterloo, it has changed, over the years. The demographic is very different. New culture, always have new immigrants coming in and so forth. So how can residents, overall become more involved in their community?
Well, I think as a first step is saying hello to each other, right?
A good place to start.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I said, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and I've engaged in a practice where I like to linger a little bit before sometimes we just want to jump out of our cars and into the house. Um,
Hmm.
say hello, exchange, ask how people are doing. So I think there's that level, um, and there are those opportunities within the community. One way that when I've entered into a new community, I try to find where people are already gathering. So where are those local places that we can bump into each other? So there are programs, for example, at the community center. There are places and things happening at our libraries. I've also found different coffee shops, for example, around Kitchener, where you see people just gathering and enjoying each other's company. And I've also witnessed people just go and slowly enter into these groups. So those are kind of those like natural connections.
Hmm.
There's associational life. So we have our neighborhood associations, and many of them hold their AGMs. And sometimes you see a picture of the AGM, there's six people there, right?
Hmm.
Those are opportunities to go and get involved in one's community. The other level we also see, um, there are those that are tied to their faith. So there's also faith communities that are very active and trying to have positive impact in their community. So that's another type of connection that can occur. Then also, I would encourage, um, you know, there is Neighbors Day coming up, so it's June
Okay.
20th. That's one way to get out of your home and connect with your neighbors and seek out. There's different events. People are hosting different events around the city. Go and find an event near your city or near your home within the city
Yeah.
to connect. Then there's also many nonprofits that are actually looking for board members,
Mhm.
people that have skill sets, that have a passion, that they would, if you would like to get involved in things like that. And at a city level, so this is building up to municipal,
Yeah.
you also have committees that
Hmm.
you can apply to and participate in. But I think something as simple, and to go back to what I said, as taking an interest in those around you, getting to know those around you, um, and frequent those businesses, those places people are gathering within your own neighborhood is an important first step in engaging the community. So years ago, I used to live in Brantford,
Hmm.
and people think I was crazy to do this. I want to get to know my neighbors. So everyone's coming and going, and there were a lot of those that were commuters. So what I ended up doing, I think I have pictures somewhere on my computer. I took up a paper route and I went to in the morning or in the morning handing out the newspapers to my neighbors and getting to know them. And they were shocked to see like I'm a little too old to be a paper boy,
Hmm.
but I was out and I use that as a way to get to know people and have those conversations and hand out the newspaper. So I had the bag, I had the newsboy hat, I did all the things. But I go, what's a way, a creative way that I could be out there and get to know people. Um, so the engaging of your community does start at a very basic level, but I find there are so many opportunities out there, but I also think the onus is on. So, for example, if you're a social service, if you're a
Hmm.
nonprofit, municipal government, the onus is how do we communicate those opportunities well to people? How do people
Hmm.
actually know about it? Because even when we have community type of engagements, people don't know about it. Sometimes they hear about it after, and
Yeah.
we build our plans based on, 15 people that show up.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is a problem, actually.
which is a problem,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Hmm.
like I've been the recipient of engagements
Hmm.
and places that I lived, and we're trying to decide on what would go and what would happen in a park near the house where we were living,
Hmm.
and they good on the municipality that I used to live in. They did want to have public consultation and such, but I did go there, and there were 8 staff from the city
Hmm.
and 3 people from the community.
Wow.
And I'm like, my community is really big, and the decision making power was put in the hands of 3 people that actually showed up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where are my neighbors? How do we connect? Right. And often we create these types of engagements where we book a room, could be in a school, community center, a hall. We say, you come to us. And we're going to determine the time, we're going to determine the place, and we're going to send out the invitations. Versus how do we actively go out and be where people are at, where people are already
Hmm.
gathering, and create that pathway to participation, which I think we need to enter into the lives of people um, in important and meaningful and connected ways rather than book a space, put up a poster, a
Yeah.
couple of Facebook feeds, and let's hope for the best. And we get 8 people.
Yeah, no, no, you brought a good point because I've had the opportunity to attend several events as well, and I noticed that the format is the same, where you have specific people are invited. They're always sitting at the front row and all of that, and so I like what I'm hearing from you. So what I'll do, I need to turn a switch on here, but what I would like to ask you, I want to know what motivates you usually to contribute to the community. So think of that, or you can respond as well. I just have to turn a light on behind me. That's all. Let me just unplug it for a
So what
second.
motivates
Okay,
me to contribute to the community?
so that's fine. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I was asking you, community work obviously is important, because I've been involved, deeply myself. I see, areas for improvement and improvement, opportunities for growth and so forth. But at the end of the day, we all have different motive as to why we involve ourselves, right? Sometimes I might see a gap, and because I may have, specific skill set to address that specific gap, I try to contribute in those areas and things of that sort. So my question to you is, what usually motivates you to kind of find a way to give back and get involved and all of these types of things?
Well, I think it begins with my conviction that uh, we're interconnected. We need each other. Um, so because of that connection and our need for one another, we need one another to grow. We need one another um, to be healthy in the places where we live. So that interconnected piece is always in my mind. The second component is um, the communities in which I've lived have given so much to me,
Mm.
and I simply don't want to take. I don't want to sit back and just let others do it for me. I want to give back and contribute, right? So it is this reciprocal idea that others have given so much and invested in me. And I look back at the mentors and leaders that have had an impact on my life, and I'm like, I need to pay that debt back in some way. So there's that piece. The other is my deep sense of curiosity. When I go out into the community, I see it as a treasure hunt. Who can I encounter? What individual, what conversation potentially can change my life? And we don't know when that's going to happen and who you're going to encounter, right? Um, because every friendship that we have in our lives, those individuals started off as strangers.
Mhm.
Strangers slowly become friends. So when I'm interacting with the community, I don't know the impact I will have on other people, but I'm also have to be open to the impact that they'll have on me. So it's that sense of curiosity that helps me enter into the community. Um, and the idea of how can I be of assistance? And I've had a conversation with my son a couple weeks back, and he's like, "Well, why are you doing all the things that you do?" And I said, "Well, I do it because when I'm dead and gone, maybe just one person will show up to my funeral and say he had an impact in my life. And I'm here today, and my life has my life took a turn for the better because I knew John, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what drives me. How do I help others grow? How do I support others in what they want to do? And I take joy in seeing others um, succeed,
Mhm.
being part of that um, success is important to me, right?
Yeah. So thank you for that. So coincidentally, we've had a guest on here who shared her story. She basically gave a story when she was young. She was the drug addict, so to speak, and she was sitting right at Victoria Park, and there was a police officer came and get her and kind of put her in a shelter system and all of that. And because of that help, she was kind of able to get clean and whatnot because she had a an opportunity to get started and kind of restart all over, so to speak. And our hope was to reach out to that police officer to kind of share her story and show her appreciation to him. But according to her, that police officer is probably passed now. So when you share your story just now, you can remind me of that story. So John, as you know, there are also barriers. There are barriers to lots of things. And so there are also barriers when it comes to giving back and engaging and all that. Sometimes the opportunity that people want is not necessarily there only because sometimes people hold things back and so forth. Based on your experience talking to people and all that, what are some of the barriers people are facing in terms of, getting involved, I mean, being part of something? So for example, some people don't even know that there are opportunities out there, right? Especially people who are new to the area, things along that line. Maybe organizations are not doing a good job to advertise or make it known that hey, we can benefit from some help, and so much more. But based on your experience, based on what you know, what are some of the barriers for people to get involved and engage in the community?
Well, I think knowledge is a barrier. So awareness of what's out there.
Mhm.
Companionship is a barrier. So do I know someone that could help me along that has been through it before? So mentorship is key. Um, h- how can I navigate a system or how can I connect with an organization I don't know? If someone has been through that, is already connected with it, how do we connect people with it, with those things, right? Um, the other barrier I see is that when we want people to be involved, um, sometimes being involved has a level of privilege tied to it, right? So we want to have these meetings and we're going to do it at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock well, there may be people in the community that have multiple jobs. There's areas where there's single parent families and there's childcare. That's an issue. Transportation to the event. We could assume that everyone has a car to get to where we want them to go. Not everyone has that.
Mhm.
Um, and then we ask people to come and we've assumed that they already have eaten and have had a meal and we will maybe have some coffee and a little bit of donuts, right? So when we're looking at all these things, um, how do we reduce those barriers to involvement? So how do we provide childcare if we want people to get involved? Um, how do we get people there? Are we meeting in convenient places and times? Are we taking into consideration the life situations of those we're looking to engage with? So knowing is key, mentorship and having people come alongside and supporting one to get involved, but also recognizing what's happening in people's lives and how can we alleviate some of those areas that they may have pressure in for them to participate, right? Um,
Mhm.
so there are areas even within Kitchener that I've worked in where we had parents, single parents that really want to come to events, that really want to get involved, but then they have to find a babysitter and then pay for the babysitter. And so when things financially are already tight, that's another thing they would have to worry about. So many of the engagement things that I do, um, and specific to the demographic, um, I try to have that childcare in place or things for the whole family to get involved. So if I'm working on a community project, for example, um, I also try to bring in not only the parents, but is there something the kids can do to share what they think on the project as well. So for me, it's those intergenerational pieces. But when we're working with the community, it's truly knowing the area of the community you're working in, because not every community, like even if you look at um, one particular neighborhood, it can be very different from street to street,
Yeah, correct.
right? And you can't base um, an engagement initiative just on one street because that might not work for the next or for the community pocket, right? So um, some of the engagement work that I've done in with some of my friends as well, um, one of the hardest groups we were finding to get together were youth. And we said, well, how do we invite youth in ways that they can share what they're feeling, and give of their experience and insight into a situation that um, reduce the barriers to their involvement. So uh, I'm not going to say just serve pizza and then have them talk, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what we did was we rented some basketball courts. We
Mm-hmm.
had some games out there. We got them to respond to questions in ways that not just verbally, but they could draw their thoughts. They
Mm-hmm.
can engage in art to express themselves. And we're moving forward and seeking to capture that. And what we were finding was there was greater involvement, there was greater interest because we were inviting people into things that they found pleasure in, and we were also having it in places that were accessible to them. And we also provided transportation for those that weren't able to be there. And I think sometimes, um, I've been guilty of it in the past. My experience isn't the only experience, and I cannot build an engagement based on my life because others have a different reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm married. My wife, if one of us needs to go to something, well, there's always going to be someone home to watch the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a car. I don't have to worry about what bus line or places I need to
Mm-hmm.
go, right? So it is trying to put yourself in the situation or understand the situation that others are in first. So there has to be a deep listening, and out of that listening, then the connection to initiatives occur. Um, and again, when we're looking at the various things that are happening in our city and how people get involved, especially if someone's new to the community, there could be a language barrier, there can be transportation barrier, there could be um, time constraints because more and more I'm hearing of people with multiple jobs. So the
Mm-hmm.
last thing they're probably thinking about is community engagement and participating in things. But what we also know about community is the more connected you are to people, the more you build your network. There's also an increased knowledge of what jobs are present and connections to employment. So uh, I'm not saying community to be the answer for all things, but
Mm-hmm.
it is an important component for our health, and that connection that we find in our community has other effects that are very important to the well-being of individuals in the neighborhoods and the places where we live.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Thank you so much, John. So time goes by really, really fast, as you know. So we've been chatting here for 4 to 6 minutes now, believe it or not.
Wow.
So before you go, we still have a good 50 minutes here. This is public information, and that's one of the reasons why I'm talking about it. I hope you don't mind. So you are officially a candidate, getting yourself ready to run in the 2026 municipal election here in Kitchener, representing Ward 5. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. It's official on the
So
web.
Yes, official on the web. Exactly. That's what I said. It's public information. So tell us a little bit about that. We know that you have always been passionate about community work and wanting, the best for the people and all of that. Um, and for folks who don't know, John did represented Ward 5 as a candidate, obviously, 4 years ago, 2022, when he came really close to win that race. I believe the difference was just about 100 and something votes and whatnot. So tell us about that. Why is it that you continue to, move forward and continue to kind of do what you feel is necessary for you to really, be part of, a change maker situation, so to speak? Because as you would know, counselor gets to make decisions that really affect people, even though not everybody follow along these things. So, my question to you is, why is it that you're running? This is not a debate or anything, but why is it that you decide to kind of give it a shot again?
Well, so last time I ran, as you mentioned, it was very
Mm,
close.
mm,
Um, I got to know many people through that campaign, knocking on doors and seeing the concerns of others. Um, but what I also learned in that campaign was how disconnected we are, not just from one another, but through the processes and even knowing of what's happening within our communities and the power people actually have to bring about change. Um, so in sitting back and why am I running again? Well, at first, there was I was reluctant,
mhm,
right? I'm like, are there ways I can serve the community and support the community that doesn't require me to campaign,
mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah.
Because reality is I'm a personality. I don't like to draw too much attention to myself. I like to
Mhm,
be behind the scenes and help others do,
mhm,
right? So you won't see me in a lot of pictures. That's my some people laugh. They're like, "Were you at that event? I didn't take a picture with you." I'm like, "Well, it's kind of," and I'm
Well,
learning more and more to be
so yeah, not to kind of cut you off here, but we will have to find your coach so you can start to do some of those
yeah,
things,
yeah,
because
yeah,
the
yeah, it's
reality is
right.
you are doing the work, right? Yeah, you are doing the work, and so we want to acknowledge that. So, but I'm glad that you're being very transparent
Yeah,
here about you're not one of those that's just kind of just do all of these kind of thing and whatnot, like in the
yeah,
open, where just for the sake of people seeing. But the thing is, there's a difference, right? So if you are doing the work, if you are present, somewhere, I think that's okay for it to be acknowledged. But when people are just doing things just for the sake of, photo app, then that becomes a problem, which we
yeah.
see all as well
You
too,
see all
right?
the
But
time.
anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I was kind of sitting back and weighing all
Mhm,
of it, and some good friends had reached out to me, community members of the community and different
mhm,
groups within Ward 5 were reaching out to me.
mhm,
And are you going to run? Are you going to run? We'd like to see you run. And
mhm,
I took that as the community calling me,
mhm,
right? And I asked myself, will I respond
mhm.
to this call, to this life of service? Because once you're a counselor, you're in the public eye,
Yeah.
and you are your decisions are judged.
Mhm.
Uh,
100%.
yeah, and the weight of that community weighs on you, right?
Mhm,
Um, and it I was inspired by members in the community that reached out to me and said, "Yes, we believe you're someone that this community needs," and they recognize the gifts in me for leadership. And that's why I say, like, when you interact with others, um, there's this philosopher I like to read. He goes, the path from self to self is through the other. So you get to learn about yourself through your interactions with others. So in my interactions with others, I began to see the leadership qualities and what I can bring to the role of a counselor. And what I've seen in the past and also in other communities is many will like to share that I have business savvy, I'm good with numbers, I'm this or that. And those things are important, but what I felt the gifts I could bring is the gift of listening, the gift of connecting others, the gift of recognizing where resources are present and supporting decisions. And I'm also a very reflective person. I'm not reactive. I like to weigh things. So when I would, for example, if I was a counselor and made decisions for Ward 5, it's what impact will this decision make not only to those living in the ward now, but in the future, right?
Mhm.
So it's holding on to the present, um, and honoring the. So when I look at things, how do I honor the past, what has come? How do I help to shape the present? And how do I move us toward, a better future? Um, and that cannot be done without reflecting, without listening, without taking in information, um, and having these informed decisions. So to go back to your question, I feel I have the gifts present. I clearly heard from members of the community that they'd like me to run. And this is something where, Narayan, we connect.
Mhm.
We're both researchers.
Yeah.
And I think to be a counselor, you have to be able to read a lot and weigh things and research and ask questions, right? Like we both have doctorates and multiple degrees. We know how to do that. We need to be good at seeing where things are happening in other parts, right? I used to have uh, a CEO, Jan Varner, and she was at United Way. I used to love what she'd say R&D, rip off and duplicate. So if someone has so if someone has a good idea and it's worked somewhere else, you can see if it's worked there. Let's see how we can begin to incorporate it here.
Mhm.
We don't need to be, and Kitchener, we're very close to so many other municipalities. So it's not only just listening to our residents and listening to our staff. What are other municipalities doing that may be working? And my parents live in Vaughan, and they have a pretty good snow removal uh, process there. Well, how are they
Absolutely.
doing that? Where one of my neighbors who's in a wheelchair can't go out and is isolated in the winter, right? So I think about those things, and I have files on my computer, good ideas from other places,
Oh wow.
because I'm a researcher,
Yeah. Of course.
and
Yeah.
I think we need to have informed approaches. And
What?
data's important, as you know, right?
100%. Absolutely. A
Yeah,
lot of people are pushing for that now too, data. A lot of organizations are pushing for, data-driven type of division, not your
yeah,
idea versus mine kind of thing. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And one of my good friends, I'm going to steal his line. His name's Rohan Thompson. He goes, "You can't fix what you don't measure." Right? And there needs to be evaluation, right? Not just
Yeah.
and how are we evaluating? And when I'm looking at this, okay, what evaluation is in place for our initiatives? Uh, how are we getting a sense of how people are feeling about where they're living and the quality of life, right? In a place. Um, So that's important. Like we need to look at the data and the numbers. So, for example, one of the big things that always comes up in a ward is we want, traffic safety, safe
Mhm.
streets. Okay, let's start with how many reported traffic incidents happen in this area and where do they seem to be happening, right? So I
Yeah.
reached out and I was like, I want to see some of the numbers. Well, online, it only goes up to 2022. So we have 4 years. I'm like, where's this data from 2022? to 2026
Hmm.
because we've done things. I've seen the current incumbent put out signs and say we're trying to work towards, but do we see a difference? Where has it
Hmm.
worked? Where hasn't it worked? Um, then from there is many of when we're talking about road safety, it's anecdotal. It's not tied to data. It's tied to people's experiences. Where, for example, I was walking and someone ran a stop sign and almost hit us. That goes on the social media group, and the perception then becomes that my area is not safe. But the data and the experiences are important. And how do we bring those to the conversation where not only do we address the areas that need to be addressed, but also have people feel safe within those places. So sometimes experiences don't align with data, but the data also needs a story. So no numbers without a story, and no story without numbers. And I think a counselor needs to be a researcher as well, not just, well, you need to be on the community, you need to be able to listen, um, you need to be able to take the photo ops, which I'll get better at. But you do get large reports that you have to distill and ask questions about. And do I think that's happening all the time? That time will tell. But being a
Yeah,
researcher is important.
for sure. I mean, decision has to be made in a concrete way. And I like what you mentioned something about regarding a friend of yours, something about you cannot measure what you cannot fix what you don't measure, something along that line. And that reminds me of something somebody said to me, you have to measure twice and cut once. So thanks for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah.
So this is great. So what I would encourage you to do, I know you have your doctorate, you're a smart man. When I was doing mine, I reached out to you for some advice as well too, because for me that was important. Um, but I like how you openly say, look, this photo op thing, it's like I'm working on that, right? So I hope that you work on that because that's gonna be key as well to for you because yes, you're doing the work, yes, you're getting the work done, but how is it that you get it out there for folks as well to see? Because the reality is you are a candidate now, right? You cannot deny that. And as a side note, it is irrelevant. This is more for the people who are watching and will be watching. 16 years ago, I ran for the same very position. So I understand where I stand, what's happening here. I wish you all the very best. In my view of things, knowing you, from a professional level, I think you do really, really well. I think you'll make a good counselor for this ward. And I like what you mentioned earlier too, that if you were to get this position, you're not gonna just worry about the people who live in this ward right now, but you want to set up in a way so that it will be working nicely in terms of safety and other things, obviously, for generations to come, if I heard you correctly, which is good because it looks like you're a big picture thinker, right? You're thinking ahead, which
Yeah.
is great. You don't do things just for temporarily. You're not gonna do things just for the 4 years while you're there. You know what I mean? And somebody else go in there another 4 years and start to do different things. We are, the time goes very fast now, it's 7 o'clock. What I would like to do, I want to give you the opportunity to say any last minute thing you want to say, and that could be, how can people find you, in terms of getting to know you more, whether that be a website or social media handle, anything along that line. Because people are watching and will be watching after the interview here, so it's gonna be really nice for you to share anything along that line. How can they, support you along the line? Because I think you not only you need it, but I think that um, it's going to be good for the people as well too, because very rarely you have somebody with additional academic background and so forth who can actually go in there and make like real changes and so forth. So take it away. Any information you want to share to the folks watching, listening, do it.
Um, so in the next couple of weeks, I'm releasing like the official, like, let's say, platform. So that's
Hmm.
going to be so the website is JONFOR and the number five uh,
Mm.
dot
Yeah.
dot ca. So that's in the works. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, I'm utilizing social media. So it's John for Five is the handle for Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Twitter and Facebook. If you go on the municipal page and where it shows all the candidates, it has my link tree there for all my social
Mm-hmm.
media accounts.
Excellent.
And then the website, we're working on putting all that up, my official platform. So my positioning and my platform is focusing on three words: listen, connect, act.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be expounding on my commitments to those three areas. So what will listening look like? What will connection look like?
Yeah.
And what actions we want to see out of that? And just very quickly, one of the things I'd like to connect with is more with the nonprofit because there's many projects that I think cooperation with nonprofits will assist in.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the action, and this is learning from other cities,
Yeah.
I'd really like to see a block connector program occur in Ward 5. So that's representatives on every block,
Oh, that's what you meant by that. Okay. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
connecting with their community and involving some nonprofits in that process. And another action I'd like to see is a fund created for youth in Ward 5. So some sort of leadership scholarship. And I'd like to work with the community foundation on that to get that going. So really invest, and this is what I'm saying, looking forward. How do I
Yeah,
invest
looking for.
in students now that will replace us, Narine, when we're gone, in
Mm-hmm.
and giving students the opportunity to get involved um, in schooling and potentially other leadership opportunities that could be there's a financial barrier to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So, John, thank you so much for joining us. I should say Dr. John, by the way, but because I know you so well, I just say John, but pretty much sure you don't mind that. I want you to know that we appreciate your time, for joining us here this evening. And to folks who are watching this thing, by all means, hit that share button. We want folks to get to know John a bit more, get to know about the work he's been doing over the years and the things that he has in plan to do for Ward 5 as he is preparing to run really a race, a political race, that is. Because here, I believe the election is on the 26th, right? And it's okay for us to start talking about this early, John, just so you know, because people have busy lives, as you mentioned. People don't have time to participate in these community events because of the double jobs and triple jobs and kids and working different times and so forth. So it's okay. So am I correct there? October 26th? I want to make sure I'm not giving wrong information here. So thanks again for joining us. Next week, you want to join us. Obviously, we try our best to do the show every Sunday from 6 p.m. and beyond. If you need to reach out to us, you know how to do that. But for now, please share the page. And I want to thank you for joining us on behalf of myself and Dr. John. Both of us would like to join together and wish you a great today and even a better tomorrow. We'll see you again soon.